We now transition to our all-star lineup of panelists. As someone who works at the grassroots, I love our grassroots organizers. They have some stories that are not always heard, but definitely need to be heard. Their stories show us what's possible when people take action. They are an inspiration for each of us to take action in our own lives. Brooks, tell us who we have with us today.
Thanks, Michael. I'm excited as well by our guests. Let me introduce them in the order in which they'll be speaking. First, we'll hear from Diane Wilson, a winner of the Goldman Prize, who for the last 30 years has led campaigns, done hunger strikes, sunk boats, and even climbed chemical towers in her fight to protect her Gulf Coast Bay. In December 2019, Diane won a landmark case against Formosa Plastics for the illegal dumping of toxic plastic waste in the Gulf Coast. The $50 million settlement was the largest settlement of its kind since the establishment of the U.S. Clean Water Act. Next, we will hear from Nancy Bowie, who is the founder and vice president of External Affairs for Justice for Formosa victims, as well as the co-founder of the International Monitor Formosa Plastics Alliance. In 2016, the Formosa Han Tin steel plant in central Vietnam released toxic chemicals into the sea, leading to extensive marine life casualties along Vietnam's coastline and severely impacting the livelihoods of over 100,000 fishers and causing devastation to over 4 million coastal residents. Nancy has been a leading advocate in calling for accountability and justice for those impacted. Finally, we will hear from Sharon Levine, who is the leader of Rise St. James, a faith-based grassroots organization working to defeat the proliferation of petrochemical industries in St. James Parish, Louisiana. Rise St. James galvanized community opposition and successfully defeated the construction of a $1.25 billion plastics manufacturing plant in 2018. The group is currently fighting to prevent Formosa Plastics from building a massive multi-billion-dollar plastics plant in the parish. Sharon is the winner of the 2021 Goldman Environmental Prize. Diane, if you could get us started, that would be terrific.
Well, thank you very much. I think there's a series of photographs that we're going to show because if there's anything about Formosa Plastics, it is about their plastic that they have been illegally discharging for 27 years. Is the screen up? I don't see it yet. I don't know. Well, I guess basically until we can see some of the photographs, because people don't get a sense of the volume and the extent of plastic contamination from a plastic plant. And this is what I have been pursuing Formosa for actually 35 years. I'm a fourth generation fisherwoman, and I have been around boats my whole life, and I was 40 years old. Oh, here we are. I was 40 years old when I first started fighting Formosa. And as Bill McGivern stated, is like, don't underestimate us folks out there with the gray hair, because I am now 75 and the campaign still is ongoing. And what you will see in this picture is the microplastic, or some people heard it called nurdles. These are pellets. They're polypropylene, polyethylene. The powder is PVC powder, SPVC, meaning specialized polyvinyl chloride. And this is the vinyl chloride that you hear about, that is even now before the EPA to have it regulated much more severely and hopefully banned one day. But this is from the plastic that is like Formosa Plastics. It's 2,500 acres. It's got 3,000 workers, and they have 20 units, and they make 1 trillion pellets a day. So what you see above you, the top 2 photographs, are what the pellets look like in the water. And also below is you will see what the powder looks like, and it's on the water. Next photograph. So this is Formosa Plastics. And as I've told you, it's 2,500 acres, 20 units, 3,000 workers. The community has been devastated. It used to be 1,500 people that lived there. Half of them filed suit and left. Formosa now owns the elementary school that used to house the students. There is no elementary school anymore. So it's predominantly Formosa Plastic. They owned most of the houses. They are the largest landowner in Jackson County, as you see in that far right. And this is always a reminder why Sharon and her community does not want Formosa there. This is that photograph you see. It looks like a plant exploding or a nuclear blast. That is the flare going off. And it's very, very regularly that it does that. Next, please. And these are the fishermen, because it's when these plastic plants, they have to have access to water. One, they need water. Two, they have to have a place where they're discharging their toxic waste. And Formosa has 9 million toxic gallons per day that is going into Matagorda Bay. And here you see we have shrimpers, we have a sportsman, we have oystermen, we have Vietnamese crabbers, we have a very large Hispanic oyster fleet that is plying out there, and they have to be in the same place where these toxic discharges are. Next, please. And these were the locations when we started realizing that there was a real problem with Formosa's discharges. Not surprising, from when we first started talking to Formosa, they absolutely denied there was any problem at all. And they said they didn't discharge any plastic into the bay. And this is Matagorda Bay. And as you see in the kind of up there on the right a little bit, that's Point Comfort and Formosa Plastics. And there was a 20-mile area, and me and a few workers, they were injured workers from the plant. They were whistleblowers, and we started collecting samples of Formosa's discharge. We did this for 2.5 years. We went out every day, rain or shine. We waded in the water. We went down to boat launches, and I started taking a kayak and went into every single one of Formosa's stormwater outfalls. Next. And this is where Formosa has their discharges. It's Matagorda Bay, which at one time historically, more shrimp were exported from this community, this bay, than anywhere in the United States. And now there are no fish houses. In my community, there used to be 120 boats. There are now maybe 5 boats. There used to be 5 shrimp houses. They have all been bulldozed. And what you see on the far right is the back end of Formosa. And they had 10 stormwater outfalls. And this is supposedly where the rainwater that is coming off of a chemical plant and is supposedly rainwater. And what we found instead was 27 years of disposing of plastic and pellets that had been dispersed all over the facility, out in the fields, out in the ditches. And we have just now spent over a year and a half trying to clean up the plastic out of this Cox's Creek, which is here on the right. And they had to use excavators, and in some places, they had to dig down 3 feet to remove all the plastic. Next. And this is the people that helped me. Almost everyone in the community was very afraid to speak out. It's what Bill McGibbon was talking about. When these large communities, they do not want to lose the power because they are making, like Formosa is making $1 billion in this community a year. And so everybody is afraid to speak out, and there is a lot of retaliation. And so believe it or not, I was getting the workers from the plant. I was getting shift supervisors. I was getting workers that worked in utilities, and they came to me, supposedly the last person a worker would want to talk to, because they couldn't go to the company. They couldn't go to elected officials. They couldn't go to state and federal agencies. So those workers started coming to me, and their reputations were ruined. They were called losers. People told them they should have kept their mouths shut. But it was because of those handful of workers that came forward that I knew the true scope of what was going on inside that plant. And I have to say, I believe that Formosa is a really bad actor, but I think a lot of these corporations are very similar, and the bottom line is profit, and the environmental destruction and the destruction that happens with the workers and the community is not even told. That story is not even told. And I am glad I'm here now and can talk about that. Next. That's the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diane, for that presentation. We deeply appreciate it. We turn now to Nancy.
Yes, it's me, Nancy Bowie. Thank you for having me, and hello, everyone. The story from Diane, very, very touching, and everyone can understand a company that the company who just want the profit and not care for the environment nor the people. In my story, Formosa Plastic even gone further. They collaborate with a dictator government, not just punish the victim. They also done so many things that we cannot imagine. So I was a journalist in South Vietnam before 1975, born, living, and surviving through the Vietnam War. Following the war, I escaped Vietnam by boat with my 2 young children, spending 22 harrowing days adrift at sea. After enduring 8 months in a refugee camp in Thailand, we were resettled in the U.S. in 1979. In the process of rebuilding our life, I returned to school and took on a part-time job to support my family. Amidst the challenges of starving anew, I admit I pay little attention to issues beyond our immediate need, including environmental concern. However, everything changed in 2016 when the environmental disaster caused by Formosa Plastic unfolded in Vietnam. Formosa Plastic USA, the largest investor of the Formosa Hà Tĩnh steel factory in Vietnam, discharged over 100 metric tons of toxic chemical waste, including cyanide, chlorine, mercury, and other heavy metal into the ocean. This ecological disaster resulted in the death of countless fish, contaminating over 200 kilometers of coastline, leaving 179 people out of job and affecting over 4 million residents in 4 provinces, including Hà Tĩnh, Quang Bình, Quang Tri, Thừa Thiên. According to Vietnam's government, it is the most significant environmental disaster in Vietnam history. 1 diver died and hundreds of people were hospitalized for food poisoning. A vast area of ocean and land got severely contaminated. The government prohibited fishermen from going fishing for 2 years because the marine life was contaminated. The chemical disaster was followed by the irresponsibility and greed of Formosa and the Vietnamese government, who initially denied and covered up the situation. Under pressure from the public, both in and outside of Vietnam, an environmental study was conducted by over 100 local and international scientists, which showed that Formosa was at fault. However, this study was never released to the public as the Vietnamese government cited it as a national security matter. Formosa offered to pay $500 million without any study for the real damage. Unfortunately, they paid to the government, not to the victim. Soon thousands of victims received little to no compensation for what they have lost. When they attempt to file a lawsuit in local courts, they and the advocates who raised their voice to protect the victim were stopped, beaten, arrested, and imprisoned with heavy sentence up to 20 years. 8 years have passed and 23 of them are still in prison as we speak. Since the victim cannot find justice in Vietnam, they have called out for help. It takes a church to deal with this situation. Catholic Bishop Nguyễn Thái Hợp, who was in charge of the region at the time, went to Europe and US to seek assistance. We met with him and formed Justice for Formosa victims in 2017. After over 2 years, with the help of lawyers and NGOs in Taiwan, the US, and many other countries around the world, we have 7,874 victims filed a lawsuit in Taiwan in June 2019. You can imagine the the task of coordinating this lawsuit, which involved 7,874 plaintiffs and span 4 legal systems: Vietnam, Taiwan, the US, and international environmental laws. Many nights I did not sleep, as Vietnam and Taiwan are on the opposite side of the globe. Collaborating with lawyers and victims during their daytime means working through my nighttime. I also face a lot of pressure from the cyber attack, regularly being called all sorts of names like cheater, scammer, and even prostitute. But I kept going because I knew that without our help, these unfortunate victims could never find justice. The lawsuit in Taiwan had entered in its 5th year, having encountered denial from both the district and high court. However, a fortunate development occurred when the Supreme Court granted jurisdiction to the victim in late 2020. Despite this positive step, nearly 4 years later, the victims are still entangled in the complexity of the court procedure. Formosa had thrown a new obstacle into the mix by requesting that the court mandate the authentication of the victim, power of attorney, first by the Vietnamese government and then by the Office of Taiwan Economic and Culture in Hanoi. This demand presents a difficult challenge, given the Vietnamese government complete control and its obstructionist stand toward the victim quest for justice. Through the advocacy of lawyers and other environmental and human rights activists in Taiwan and the U.S. and the intervention of 7 bipartisan Congress members later, the Taiwan Minister of Foreign Affairs lowered the requirement, now require the victim go through the Taiwan Office of Economic and Cultural Office. However, this assistance is not sufficient. Victims who went to this office were stopped and threatened, and their helper was summoned to the post police office for investigation and threatened with arrest and imprisonment if they continue to assist. Recently, the local police of Quang Binh went even further, using 3 trucks to surround the village for 3 nights, broadcasting announcements prohibiting anyone from going to Hanoi to complete their paperwork, labeling our effort as a scam. The victims are now in shock, fear, and discouraged. When the press questioned the Vietnamese government about a lawsuit in Taiwan, the response was misleading, claiming that the matter had been resolved. All victims had been satisfactorily compensated. The marine life had returned, the polluted area had been restored, and the fishing industry revitalized. They further assert that those arrested and imprisoned were solely individuals who had violated the law. In the midst of this turmoil, many victims found themselves without employment, prompting desperate measures such as coming to the southern provinces in search of odd job, or offering their property as a collateral to afford a broker fee for work opportunity in South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, or China, or even Europe. This often means leaving the children behind to be cared for by grandparents or relatives. The heart-wrenching consequences are evident in the children longing for their absent parent. Each conversation with them reveals tears. They ask me when their parent will come home. They miss them so much. I have no answer for them. The absence of parental care weighs heavily on these young souls. Tragically, the prolonged separation takes a toll on families. Often resulting in unavoidable fractures. Contract for labor abroad typically span at least 3 years, worsening the strain on these families. Regrettably, some victims never return home, risking themselves to the peril of dangerous journey, exemplified by the tragic incident that shook the world in 2019, when 39 Vietnamese immigrant workers died in a frozen container at the border of England, 35 of whom came from regions affected by the Formosa disaster. Dealing with the same company, Formosa Plastic, Diane Wilson of San Antonio, waterkeeper Sharon Lavin of Rise St. James and as Justice for Formosa Victims, we formed Justice International Minority Formosa Alliance, along with our partner organizations such as Friends of the Earth, Break Free from Plastic, Earthright, the Center for International Environmental Law, Earthwork, and numerous other worldwide actively engaged in advocating for environmental and human rights for these victims. Together, we advocate before the U.S. Congress, Senate, and State Department, urging diplomatic intervention to compel both Taiwanese and Vietnamese government to uphold their obligation to the victim in accordance with domestic law and international law and human rights standards. This concerted effort aims to facilitate justice for the victim and hold Formosa Plastic accountable for its action. Whether a U.S. corporation like Formosa USA damage the environment domestically or abroad, they should be held accountable the same. We are circulating a sign-on letter addressed to the Vietnamese government from the U.S. Congress, sponsored by Representative Joe Larkin, and we urge organization and member of UCC Church to endorse it and exert pressure on the Vietnamese government to fulfill its obligation, compensated adequately to the victim, clean up the polluted ocean and land, and release all the prisoners of conscience. I would like to share the link on the screen if I can, and kindly request your support to help these injustice victims fight justice. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Nancy. We have shared the link in the chat, and we will make sure it's distributed to everyone in the post-event email. We really appreciate your presentation, and we now turn to Sharon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. Back in 2018, while I was in my classroom teaching, my daughter called me and told me that our governor, John Bel Edward, at that time had approved a 9.4 Formosa Plastics industry to be built in St. James. Now, mind you, we have 12 industries and refineries within a 10-mile radius. We have over 100 storage tanks within a 10-mile radius. The only storage tanks that's in St. James is in my district, and I live in the 5th district of the parish. Our parish has 7 districts. They only put these plants in the 4th and 5th district, where predominantly Black residents live. When I received the news about Formosa would be coming in, I was in an organization called HELP. We asked them to let's stop Formosa from coming in. They said we couldn't stop it because the governor approved it. They said we couldn't stop it because it's a done deal. They said we couldn't stop it because our parish council members would approve it. I didn't believe them at first. Then I saw for myself. After the HELP Association wouldn't try to fight this industry, I prayed. I talked to God. I didn't even know Diane. I didn't even know Nancy. I didn't know anyone that was dealing with these things back in 2018. And then in October of 2018, that's when we formed Rise St. James. Rise St. James is a faith-based grassroots organization because it came from God. God gave it to us, and He put the fight in us that you could never imagine. I remember having a town hall meeting at St. Michael's Church, and we asked Diane to come and speak, and she did a marvelous job. She explained to the parish how, if this plant would come in, how devastating it would be for our community. We also had Diane to speak at the parish council meeting in front of our public officials. They didn't even budge like it was nothing because they had already approved their air permit and the wetlands permit. So we had a fight on our hands because they didn't listen to anyone. So in 2019, January, they approved this plant to come in. In 2019, in May, we had our first march from Reserve to the governor's mansion. He wouldn't come out to speak with us at all. Then we had another march in October of 2019, asking the governor to come out. We had people from New Orleans, from different parts of our area, different parts of Cancer Alley. They call our area Cancer Alley because of the high levels of cancer that we experience in our communities. So we had a fight, and we're still fighting. We went to court, and we sued Formosa Plastics and Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality. The judge ruled in our favor that Formosa Plastic would vacate the premises, but they haven't started to build yet, but they have the land and everything. So the judge ruled on all 10 counts in our favor. They appealed it. We went back to court on November 7th of last year with a 3-panel judge. They still would not let this go. So we went to court again in December. We had people from different states came by to support us. A 5-panel judge, 1 judge was in our favor, the other 4 was against us. So we still have a fight on our hands. So now we're taking it to Louisiana Supreme Court. We haven't gotten a date yet. We haven't heard from them yet. We're waiting to hear something. So if Formosa Plastic would come, which I know they're not coming, but if they would come, they would emit ethylene oxide. That's a cancer-causing chemical. They would emit, they would drop benzene in our water, which we already have it in there already. And we already have butadiene in the air. They would increase the toxicity of our area by, I think, 800% more. And it would be a death sentence for St. James, especially the 5th district where I live. And we're still fighting. And Army Corps of Engineers haven't decided if they're going to give them a wetlands permit. They're still hanging on, waiting to see what they are going to do. We went to the White House on 2022. We had a march with people all over the Gulf Coast. We had like a funeral service to get the attention of the President of the United States, asking him to stop Formosa Plastics from coming into St. James, to stop all the pollution down Cancer Alley. We changed the name from Cancer Alley to Death Alley because it's a death sentence. If you come from out of state and live in St. James or live in Cancer Alley, you're probably more susceptible to die faster than us because we've been here all of our lives, not knowing we were being polluted, not knowing we were breathing this poison. So people have come to visit us to see how what we're going through. So many people have come here to have tours, and some of them leave with a stomach ache. Some of them leave with a headache. We always having headaches and sinus and throat. We have all kinds of problems. We have so many people who have died from cancer. So many people that worked in industry, their lives were cut short. So many people had come to rise to let us know what's going on in industry, because they letting us know that they are not being protected as workers that works in the plants. And especially there was a Formosa plant in Baton Rouge. It's a small one. We didn't know they had one until we did our march. When we marched in 2019, we found out that there was a Formosa Plastics in Baton Rouge. Some people that worked there said that they're not protected. They don't have the right suits to wear to protect themselves. They just go in and work, but they do have signs saying, don't go beyond this area because it's cancer causing. So much of it is cancer causing. And so we are trying to get the ministers on board to help us with this fight. That's kind of hard because they said they don't want to bring politics into the church. But I told them this is not about politics. It's about saving our lives. If we don't stop all of these industries from coming in here, you won't have politics or anything else. You won't even have human beings because these plants are taking over our lives. When I asked to speak with the HR person at Formosa, they would not give me a meeting with her. They would not meet with Rise St. James, the same way our governor would not meet with Rise St. James. Now we have a new governor in Louisiana, and we haven't had a chance to ask for a meeting with him, but we plan to ask him to meet with him and to let him know how we stand on all of these polluters that's coming into our community. We ran Wan Chemical in 2019. They packed up and leave because they didn't want the fight, plus with issues with the land. We ran South Louisiana Methanol last year. They packed up and left. Now there's another industry that's trying to come in. It's called DG Fuse. They say that they are a clean energy. No, it's not clean. If you have to get an air permit to come in here, it's not clean. So our fight continues. Formosa haven't stopped, and we are not going to stop either because we say it no more, not in St. James and not 2 miles from where I live. I don't think so. We already have a lot of illnesses that's going on in our communities, a lot of deaths, a lot of funerals. So we said no more, but we haven't heard anything from Formosa, but we know they will not be built in St. James. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon, for that powerful presentation. Michael, let's take our first question from those online, and then we'll take our second question from those gathered in Hanover.
Yeah, Brooks, and I guess this is for Diane and Sharon in particular. One of the questions that's come up in the question and answers is basically, what can we do to get involved in helping in this fight?
Well, I can speak for myself. I think just getting the word out about Formosa Plastics, and that it is as the federal judge said, they are a serial polluter. Their pollution, their violations are enormous, and that when they build, they will take over the communities. So communities like Sharon, I went over there and saw where it was located. You cannot imagine how the traffic, there is accidents every week and deaths, and they even brought the police for the traffic because it was so immense. And like I said, they have bought up all the land. They have got 2 downstream plants that takes their plastic, and they got 40,000 acres. So when they say they want to come in, trust me, they want to come in and take over the community. And Sharon and that community and those school children, the legacy will be gone because it will now become Formosa. So people and organizations, they need to lend support to what Sharon is fighting in Louisiana. They need to lend support to Nancy, because this is Formosa. It's a family dynasty, and it is Taiwan that is making the decisions. And wherever they go, they create this destruction and this havoc, and they are intimidating and scaring people. So in any way that they can offer support, getting the message out and talking to, and if anybody lives near the coast, I would recommend them going out and just start checking the plastic that is out there on the beach. These nurdles that they talk about, the powder, it's all over the bay. It's the fish have it in their guts. The oysters, the oystermen, they open it up. The microplastics is in the oysters, and it can devastate our communities.
Well, to help us get the word out, you can go to our website at risestjames.org. You can sign the petition. The QR code is in our website, asking President Biden to stop Formosa Plastics. We have 96,000 signatures already. We want as many signatures as we can get to bring to President Biden. He can stop it like that.
Thank you for those responses. We'll now turn towards our audience in Hanover for a question from the audience there.
Hi, great presentation. I really appreciate hearing from everybody. Just curious, how do you pay for the legal fights?
Well, I can tell you how we did our clean water suit. It was a citizen clean water suit because the federal agency nor the state agency had ever filed a single violation, and Formosa had never turned in a violation. So there is a provision in the Clean Water Act that if there is no evidence, that a citizen can file it. And so we filed a citizen suit. And interesting enough, I used a legal aid, like most people see it as you're trying to get a divorce, you're trying to get some kind of complaint addressed with your landowner or your car or whatever. We got legal aid in Texas, and it's for people who have no money, and our organization was a small grassroots with mainly fishermen involved. And so the Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid filed our lawsuit. It did not cost us a single penny. And they fought Formosa Plastics with all their lawyers, probably $900 an hour lawyers, and we won. So it shows you, if you have the right heart, and there are ways to get this done.
Well, we used Tulane Law Clinic. The students at Tulane fought for us with the guidance of their instructor. And we also had CCR from New York. We had CBD from New York, and we had Earth Justice. So we have 4 law firms, but the main ones was the students from Tulane. So we didn't have to pay anything. Thank God for that.
Yeah, I see some people asking about Formosa from Taiwan. The structure of Formosa Plastic Group is very complicated. They have their mother company in Taiwan, but wherever they go, they form a local company. Just like they come to the US, they have Formosa Plastic USA, or they came to Vietnam, they have Formosa Steel Hà Tĩnh factory, so far and so on. So, but they came, like Dan said, they came from from one Formosa Plastic Group, and they make a decision over there. Just like in Vietnam, Formosa Plastic Group in Taiwan decide how much, what kind of technical they use, how they manage it, how they marketing it. Everything that over $100,000 will be decided from the Formosa Plastic Group, but they also have local Formosa company there, so we can sue the case of Diane and Sharon. They sue Formosa USA. In Vietnam, we sue Formosa USA because USA invest lots of money in that steel factory in Vietnam. And also we sued the local company, Formosa, Formosa Steel Factory in Ha Tinh, to answer the question, I hope.
Thank you, Nancy, for that response. We have some questions where people are trying to get a better grasp of what exactly are the kinds of plastic products that Formosa is producing. Is it going straight to consumers, or are there companies that can be put pressure on that are buying products from Formosa? If you could help shed some light on that, that'd be terrific.
Well, I
That's
know.
a good.
Yeah, won't you go ahead? You start, Nancy. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes. In 2023, Formosa Steel Factory in Vietnam export to the U.S. over $400 million of their products. So we are searching for who buying those, and then we need to talk to them, because these product made by the tier, and so much grief from the community, they shouldn't buy from it. But we have not successfully find that yet. So maybe from this webinar, we hope anybody know about it. We would like to hear from it. Yes. Diane.
I do know one thing that's real interesting that most people won't even think about, because Formosa Plastics makes plastic, polyethylene, polypropylene. They have, and they do PVC, like PVC pipes, like Wharton, Texas. They ship, they got railroads, and they ship it by train, and they ship it by these big semi trucks. And I know that, and so that's PVC pipes. But the interesting thing that people should realize, Formosa makes a fiber, a plastic fiber. And I once was on a big conference, and the clothing and fiber industry were trying to become more sustainable and more greener. And I was like, why do you want a plastic advocate here? And they were saying, because they buy most of their material from Formosa fiber. It was like 50 some odd percent. So your clothing, that is an extremely good place to start targeting, is the clothing, because it's plastic. So to me, that's a good place to start. And everybody buys clothes. And I just don't think most people realize it, how much is plastic.
Yes, that's true, Diane and Nancy. We have so many things that the plastic is used for. Well, we could start off with something simple, like the throwaway bags at the grocery stores. When you go to the restaurant, the straws that you drink out of, you don't have to use a straw. Stop using those simple things that we use just to start us to gradually move away from all this plastics. If we stop buying the things that they make the plastic with, we can shut them down. I know it's not going to take right now, but it's going to take a while, but we can get started. Find out what we shouldn't, like some places, some stores have the paper bags instead of the plastic bags, or bring your own bag to the store. But we have to start off somewhere by stop using all of this plastic. And that's one way to get them, to shut them down.
Thank you for all of this information and this wealth of wisdom that each of you has shared with us. I think we will, gather up some of the resources that have been mentioned. We know there's also a Plastic Jesus resource for churches that want to dive into learning more about plastics. And they also lift up Rise St. James in that resource. And so we'll have links to that too, for all the ways that congregations can get involved. Michael, what are your thoughts here?
We want to say thank you so much to each of you for your wisdom that comes from the experience. And thank you for making a difference. Each of you are truly an inspiration to us. Brooks, how do you feel like wrapping up this incredible summit?
Michael, I think there is only one way to wrap this up. That is with a call to action. Thankfully, we have more than abstract exhortations today. We've got a real campaign, and we've got the lead organizer for that campaign, Sue Miller. Sue, we've got all this positive energy to do something now after hearing from these incredible speakers. Can you tell us where we can channel this energy?
Absolutely. Thank you, Brooks. Hello, everyone. Today, I am thrilled to discuss the Vote for Climate Hope campaign, which is a United Church of Christ initiative that tackles the overlapping crisis of climate and inequality. Building upon the success of our 2023 Climate Hope Cards campaign, this campaign leads into our strengths as a denomination. First, through our churches, we have deep local roots in communities throughout the country, urban, suburban, and rural, and in blue, red, and purple states. Second, we know that social change relies on broad participation in movements through member-driven organizations, and we are not only member-driven, but we are also spirit-led. We see this whether we are gathering to discern at General Synods or at our climate action assemblies every 2 months. General Synod resolutions have focused us on climate action at the federal level and the intersectionality of all justice issues. Our local church leaders from last year's Climate Hope campaign have also identified priorities for 2024. Electing climate justice champions to Congress, and advocating for legislation addressing environmental racism and frontline community harms. In line with these priorities, we are now in the first phase of the Vote for Climate Hope campaign, which is an art contest for children and youth. Each of you is invited to the award ceremony for finalists on Saturday, May 4th. The winning art will then be placed on Vote for Climate Hope pledge cards that will be sent out to congregations throughout the country. In the church and in the community, members will be encouraging people to vote and to vote their values. Part of the beauty of voter pledge cards is that they give an opportunity for members throughout the country to have a face-to-face interaction that bring people into a growing movement. Help us continue to grow. Together, we can have the power to make a difference in creating a more just and sustainable world. Thank you.
Thank you for Patty and everyone who signed the petition. We appreciate it. Thanks again.